For over 2 millennia, the tale of Atlantis has ignited imaginations, sparking debates between scholars, archaeologists, and enthusiasts. It speaks of a technologically advanced civilization, a powerful island empire that vanished catastrophically. The question remains, is this an elaborate philosophical allegory crafted by one of history's greatest thinkers, or does it hint at a profound, lost chapter of human history, a reality submerged and forgotten? Our investigation begins at the source, exploring the earliest, and indeed, the only foundational account of this legendary city. The primary, and virtually singular, source for the Atlantis narrative comes from the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, specifically in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. Written around 360 BCE, these texts introduce Atlantis not as a fleeting myth, but as a historical account passed down through generations. According to Plato, his great-grandfather Dropides received this story from Solon, the revered Athenian statesman, who in turn learned it from Egyptian priests in Sais during his travels. This chain of attribution is crucial for understanding Plato's framing of the narrative. According to Plato's account in Timaeus, Solon visited Egypt approximately 2 centuries before Plato's time. In the city of Sais, Egyptian priests detailed a powerful civilization that predated even their own recorded history, a civilization known as Atlantis. The priests reportedly showed Solon written records and spoke of a great war between Atlantis and ancient Athens. This narrative framework presents Atlantis as a real historical entity, despite its later philosophical interpretations. The question for us becomes, how much of this attribution is historical fact, and how much is a literary device employed by Plato to lend gravitas to his philosophical arguments? Plato's dialogues provide a remarkably specific timeline for Atlantis. The Egyptian priests told Solon that the cataclysmic destruction of Atlantis occurred approximately 9,000 years before Solon's visit. Given Solon's historical period around 600 BCE, this places the fall of Atlantis at roughly 9,600 BCE. This extraordinary antiquity pushes the story far beyond conventional historical records and into a geological epoch when ice ages were receding. This precise dating is a significant point of contention for scholars debating the literal truth of Plato's account versus its allegorical nature. Critias offers a detailed description of Atlantis as an island continent located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, typically identified as the Strait of Gibraltar. It was larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, featuring a central metropolis built with concentric rings of land and water, connected by tunnels and canals. The land itself was fertile, yielding abundant crops and rich in valuable metals. This detailed geographic and architectural specificity has fueled centuries of speculative mapping and searches. Plato describes a society of immense wealth and sophisticated infrastructure, painting a vivid picture of its grandeur. Plato portrays the Atlanteans as descendants of Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, who fathered 5 pairs of twin sons with a mortal woman named Cleito. The eldest, Atlas, gave his name to the island and its surrounding ocean. Initially, the Atlanteans were virtuous, living in harmony, guided by divine laws and a profound sense of justice. They possessed immense wealth, a powerful military, and advanced engineering capabilities, evident in their elaborate city and vast naval fleet. This early description sets the stage for a tragic downfall, characteristic of Plato's moral framework. Over generations, the Atlanteans, despite their divine origins, succumbed to corruption. Their material wealth and power led to arrogance, greed, and an insatiable desire for conquest. They began to invade other lands, including ancient Athens, abandoning their virtues and falling out of favor with the gods. Zeus, observing their moral decay, convened the other gods to deliberate on their fate. This moral decline is a pivotal element in Plato's narrative, suggesting a clear allegorical purpose rather than a purely historical one. The divine intervention marks the turning point toward their ultimate destruction. The divine judgment was swift and devastating. Plato describes a single dreadful night and day during which Atlantis was engulfed by earthquakes and floods, sinking beneath the ocean. This catastrophic event was so profound that it left behind impassable shoals of mud, making navigation impossible in that part of the Atlantic for centuries. This dramatic collapse serves as a powerful cautionary tale about hubris and moral decline. The description evokes natural disasters like volcanic eruptions and tsunamis, lending a veneer of realism to the fantastical event. The central debate surrounding Atlantis revolves around Plato's true intention. Was he recounting a forgotten piece of history, or was the story a cleverly constructed allegory? Many classical scholars, including Aristotle, believed Atlantis was a fictional invention, a philosophical device to illustrate Plato's ideal state or to serve as a cautionary tale against imperialistic ambitions. They argue that the vivid descriptions and specific details were merely literary flourishes designed to make the allegory more compelling and persuasive. This interpretation is supported by Plato's broader body of work, which frequently uses myths to convey complex philosophical ideas. Conversely, a significant segment of researchers and enthusiasts maintains that Plato's account, despite its philosophical overlay, contains a kernel of historical truth. They point to the remarkable specificity of the details, the precise date, the geographical location beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the concentric city design, and the catastrophic end. Proponents argue that if Plato merely intended an allegory, such meticulous detail would be unnecessary. They suggest that Plato, a meticulous observer, would not have attributed a fictional tale to revered historical figures like Solon and Egyptian priests without a factual basis, however distorted. One of the most significant challenges to the historical interpretation lies in Plato's reported dimensions and chronology. An island larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined is enormous, suggesting a continent rather than an island. Furthermore, the 9600 BCE date places Atlantis squarely in the Stone Age, a period for which archaeological evidence of such a highly advanced, Bronze Age-level civilization is non-existent. Critics argue that attributing such a society to this era requires a complete re-evaluation of human technological development, for which there is no independent corroboration. These discrepancies lead many mainstream scholars to dismiss a literal interpretation. Modern geology and oceanography provide powerful tools for scrutinizing the Atlantis claims. The concept of an entire continent-sized landmass submerging in a single day is geologically improbable. While tectonic plate activity causes land subsidence, it typically occurs over vast stretches of time, not catastrophically in a dreadful night and day. Additionally, ocean floor mapping has revealed no evidence of a sunken landmass of Atlantis's described scale and features beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Seismic surveys and deep-sea exploration consistently fail to locate such a colossal submerged city or island. One of the most compelling and academically accepted hypotheses for a historical Atlantis points to the volcanic island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, in the Aegean Sea. Around 1600 BCE, Thera experienced one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history, known as the Minoan eruption. This cataclysmic event shattered the island, created a massive caldera, and generated tsunamis that devastated surrounding civilizations, particularly the Minoan culture on Crete. The scale of destruction and the island's partial submersion resonate strongly with Plato's narrative of Atlantis's demise. When comparing Thera to Plato's Atlantis, several similarities emerge. Both were island civilizations, technologically advanced for their time, and both met a sudden, catastrophic end involving water. The concentric city design of Atlantis has been metaphorically linked to Thera's caldera. However, significant discrepancies exist. Thera is located in the Aegean, not beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Its destruction date of 1600 BCE is roughly 8,000 years after Plato's specified 9600 BCE. Furthermore, Thera was an island, not a continent larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. Archaeological excavations at Acrotiri on Santorini have uncovered a remarkably preserved Bronze Age city, buried under volcanic ash for millennia. This Minoan outpost, often dubbed the Pompeii of the Aegean, reveals multi-story buildings, sophisticated drainage systems, and exquisite frescoes depicting a rich maritime culture. This evidence demonstrates that a highly developed civilization indeed existed on Thera prior to its destruction. While not Atlantis in scale, Acrotiri provides a tangible example of a prosperous, advanced island society that was suddenly erased by a natural catastrophe, lending credence to parts of Plato's narrative. Proponents of the Thera hypothesis often suggest a lost in translation or copyist error explanation for the chronological and geographical discrepancies in Plato's account. They argue that the Egyptian priests might have miscommunicated, or Solon later misremembered, crucial details like numbers. For instance, a common theory suggests that 9,000 years could have been mistakenly translated from 900 years, or 9,000 months instead of years, significantly narrowing the timeline to something closer to the Minoan eruption. However, there's no textual evidence to support such a specific transcription error, leaving it as conjecture. Another prominent candidate for Atlantis emerged in the 20th century, the Richat Structure in Mauritania, often called the Eye of the Sahara. This striking geological formation, approximately 40 kilometers in diameter, consists of deeply eroded, concentric domes, resembling Plato's description of Atlantis's multi-ringed city. Located far inland today, proponents suggest that the Sahara Desert was once a fertile, watery region. Its geographical coordinates, approximately 10 degrees north of the equator, align with some interpretations of ancient navigation texts, making it a compelling visual match for the city's structure. A key aspect of the Richat structure theory revolves around its proximity to the Pillars of Hercules. While not literally beyond them in the Atlantic, some interpretations suggest that the pillars could have referred to earlier, perhaps mythical, geographic markers. Proponents point to ancient coastlines and sea levels. During the last glacial maximum, sea levels were significantly lower, and the Strait of Gibraltar might have been shallower or even land-bridged. However, this still requires a substantial reinterpretation of Plato's explicit Atlantic placement, a challenge that critics find difficult to reconcile with the text. The structure itself is undeniably impressive, but its distance from the ocean is a major hurdle. The primary scientific objection to the Richat structure as Atlantis is its undisputed geological origin. Geologists confirm it is a deeply eroded domal uplift, formed by natural processes over hundreds of millions of years, not by artificial construction. There is no archaeological evidence of human habitation, monumental architecture, or the canals and bridges described by Plato. While visually compelling from space, the Eye of the Sahara lacks any archaeological signature of a sophisticated ancient civilization, making it, in the eyes of mainstream science, a natural wonder rather than a lost city. Its age also predates humanity by hundreds of millions of years. Off the coast of North Bimini in the Bahamas, an underwater rock formation known as the Bimini Road has been proposed as a remnant of Atlantis. Discovered in 1968, it consists of thousands of large, rectangular limestone blocks, arranged in a straight line for approximately 800 meters. Some proponents argue these blocks are remnants of an ancient wall or road, suggesting an advanced culture existed in the Bahamas when sea levels were lower. The symmetry and arrangement of the blocks, they contend, are too precise to be purely natural, hinting at deliberate human construction. This site taps into the intrigue of submerged ruins. Geologists, however, largely dismiss the Bimini Road as a natural formation, a product of wave erosion and jointing in limestone bedrock. They point to similar intertidal and shallow water formations found globally, explaining the straight lines and blocky appearance as natural fractures. The blocks are composed of beach rock, a common sedimentary rock formed by the cementation of sand and shell fragments. Dating methods suggest the formation is relatively young, approximately 2,000 to 4,000 years old, which is far too recent for Plato's 9,600 BCE Atlantis. No signs of tool marks or mortar have been definitively found, undermining claims of artificial construction. Beyond the more widely discussed hypotheses, numerous other locations have been proposed for Atlantis, often relying on speculative interpretations of Plato or unconventional archaeological data. These include sites as diverse as the Canary Islands, Ireland, the Azores, Malta, and even Antarctica. Some theories suggest a connection to the Minoan civilization without the Thera eruption, while others delve into ancient astronaut theories or cataclysmic pole shift events. While intriguing, these theories typically lack substantive archaeological or geological support and often rely on highly selective readings of evidence, failing to satisfy mainstream academic scrutiny. A critical geographical marker in Plato's account is the Pillars of Hercules, universally accepted as the Strait of Gibraltar. This places Atlantis firmly in the Atlantic Ocean. Any theory locating Atlantis in the Mediterranean Sea, such as the Thera hypothesis, requires a redefinition or misinterpretation of this crucial geographical detail. Some theorists argue that there might have been other pillars in antiquity, but Plato's contemporaries almost certainly recognized Gibraltar as the boundary of the known world. This specific demarcation forms a robust barrier against many proposed alternative locations, anchoring the search firmly in the Atlantic. Plato describes Atlantis as possessing advanced technology, including sophisticated metallurgy, complex hydraulic engineering, and a formidable navy. However, his chosen timeline of 9600 BCE places this society firmly in the Mesolithic or early Neolithic period. During this era, humanity was largely composed of hunter-gatherer societies, just beginning to develop agriculture and rudimentary tools. The existence of a Bronze Age or even Iron Age level civilization, as implied by Atlantis's descriptions, is a profound anachronism for this period, according to conventional archaeological understanding. This mismatch forces a choice between Plato's literal date or his description of advanced capabilities. Despite the lack of definitive evidence, the myth of Atlantis continues to exert an unparalleled influence on popular culture. From literature and films to video games and spiritual movements, Atlantis symbolizes a lost golden age, advanced wisdom, and the fragility of civilization. This enduring appeal stems from its potent blend of mystery, wonder, and the tantalizing possibility of a forgotten past. It taps into humanity's fascination with hidden knowledge and the yearning for answers to existential questions about our origins and potential. The story transcends its philosophical origins to become a universal archetype. For many, the relentless search for Atlantis is driven not just by scientific curiosity, but by a deeper human impulse to explore the unknown. It represents the hope that there are still grand discoveries to be made, fundamental truths about our past waiting to be unearthed. The possibility of an advanced civilization existing so far back in time challenges conventional historical paradigms and fuels alternative theories of human development. Even if Atlantis proves to be purely allegorical, the pursuit itself has stimulated significant scientific advancements in oceanography, archaeology, and geology. A curious detail often overlooked is that Plato never fully completed the Critias dialogue, which was intended to be the primary narrative detailing Atlantis. The story abruptly ends mid-sentence, just as Zeus is about to deliver his judgment. This unfinished state contributes to the mystery, leaving much of the story's resolution to speculation. Some scholars suggest Plato intentionally left it incomplete, perhaps having achieved his philosophical aim, while others argue he simply moved on to other projects. The lack of a definitive conclusion from Plato himself allows for continued reinterpretations and new theories to emerge, keeping the legend alive. The story of Atlantis highlights the complex relationship between mythology and potential historical fact. Many ancient myths, from the Trojan War to the Great Flood, have been found to contain distorted echoes of real events or geographical features. The question for Atlantis is whether its historical kernel, if any, is so deeply buried and distorted by philosophical embellishment as to be irretrievable. Plato's narrative certainly fits the pattern of mythic storytelling, where powerful moral lessons are often interwoven with elements drawn from cultural memory or dramatic natural events. It's a blend that challenges simple categorization. The idea of a landmass submerging is not entirely fanciful. Global sea levels have fluctuated dramatically throughout Earth's history, particularly due to glacial cycles. During the last glacial maximum, approximately 20,000 years ago, sea levels were up to 120 meters lower than today, exposing vast swaths of continental shelf. As glaciers melted, sea levels rose, submerging coastal plains and potentially low-lying islands. While this process is gradual, not instantaneous, it provides a mechanism by which ancient coastal settlements could have vanished beneath the waves, fueling stories of lost lands. However, this still doesn't explain a continent-sized island sinking rapidly. The geographical placement of Atlantis is one of the most stubborn contradictions in the search. Plato unequivocally states beyond the Pillars of Hercules in the Atlantic Ocean. Theories attempting to place Atlantis in the Mediterranean, like the Thera hypothesis, required dismissing this key detail as an error or a later embellishment. This creates a significant methodological challenge. If one can dismiss core elements of Plato's description, where does one draw the line? The integrity of the original source text becomes compromised, making any subsequent historical claim increasingly speculative and subjective. It highlights the difficulty of reconciling myth with geography. To fully appreciate Plato's narrative, it's essential to understand the context of ancient Greek philosophy. Plato often used myths, both existing and invented, as pedagogical tools. His dialogues were not solely historical treatises but profound explorations of ethics, politics, and metaphysics. Atlantis, in this light, serves as a counterpoint to his ideal state, the Republic, showcasing the perils of imperial ambition and moral decay. The detailed descriptions and historical framing might be seen as artistic realism, making the philosophical lesson more impactful and relatable, rather than an assertion of literal fact. This perspective diminishes the need for a physical Atlantis. Archaeology primarily deals with tangible remains, pottery, tools, structures, human burials. Finding evidence of an advanced civilization from 9600 BCE, particularly one that sank beneath the ocean, presents monumental challenges. The acidic nature of seawater, shifting sands, and tectonic activity all contribute to the destruction or burial of artifacts. While underwater archaeology has yielded incredible discoveries, finding a sprawling city like Atlantis, with its distinctive architecture, would require an extraordinary set of preservation conditions that are highly unlikely in the deep ocean environment, especially from such an ancient period. The sheer depth and scale make detection incredibly difficult. The concentric ring structure of Atlantis, with alternating circles of land and water, connected by channels, is a vivid and recurring image in Plato's description. This unique blueprint has captivated urban planners and researchers alike. While no ancient city has been found with such an exact, intricate design on the scale Plato described, the concept itself is appealing. Some have drawn parallels to ancient ideal city plans or even to natural geological features, such as the Richat Structure, whose ringed pattern is naturally occurring. This detailed architectural vision is part of what makes Atlantis so enduringly memorable and distinct from other lost city myths. Plato's description of Atlantis strongly implies a Bronze Age level of technology and societal organization, with advanced metallurgy, complex social structures, and large-scale warfare. Yet, the 9600 BCE date precedes the known Bronze Age by nearly 6,000 years. The earliest widely accepted evidence of bronze metallurgy appears around 3300 BCE. This chronological inconsistency is a major hurdle for any literal interpretation. It implies either an unknown, highly advanced pre-Bronze Age civilization, or that Plato transposed the characteristics of a later era onto an ancient tale, further suggesting an allegorical rather than a historical intent. Ultimately, many scholars agree that Plato's primary purpose in recounting the Atlantis story was not to document history, but to deliver a powerful moral and political warning. Atlantis represented the dangers of unchecked power, wealth, and imperialistic expansion, contrasting sharply with the virtuous, self-sacrificing ancient Athens that ultimately defeated it. The narrative serves as a cautionary tale against hubris and the corruption of human nature. The dramatic downfall of Atlantis illustrates the divine retribution awaiting societies that abandon justice and wisdom in favor of material gain and conquest. This allegorical function provides a coherent interpretation of the dialogues. The modern quest for Atlantis, while often dismissed by mainstream archaeology, benefits from unprecedented technological advancements. Satellite imagery, advanced sonar mapping, deep-sea remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, allow for detailed exploration of the ocean floor. These tools have revolutionized our understanding of submerged landscapes and wrecks. However, despite these capabilities, no definitive evidence of a continent-sized sunken city matching Plato's description has been found. The challenge remains the immense scale and the specific, highly improbable geological and chronological conditions required. Atlantis represents more than just a lost city, it embodies the concept of a lost utopia. A place of advanced wisdom, peace, and abundance before its fall. This idealized image continues to inspire spiritual movements, alternative history theories, and a yearning for a connection to an ancient, superior past. It taps into the human desire for a narrative of greatness, a golden age from which humanity has declined. Whether literal or allegorical, Atlantis fulfills a deep psychological need for mystery and the romantic idea of a forgotten, more perfect world, buried beneath the waves or the sands of time. Its legacy is undeniable. The divide between those who see Atlantis as a philosophical construct and those who seek its literal remains is profound. On one side, academics prioritize textual analysis and historical context, understanding Plato's work within his philosophical framework. On the other, explorers and alternative researchers are driven by the romantic allure of discovery and the potential to rewrite history. Both approaches, while divergent, contribute to the ongoing fascination. The strength of Plato's narrative is its ability to support both interpretations, leaving the ultimate conclusion to the individual's disposition toward myth and empirical evidence. In our investigation, we have consistently attributed claims, Plato's account, geological findings, archaeological discoveries, and scholarly interpretations. This rigorous approach is vital when dealing with a subject as speculative as Atlantis. Without clear attribution, assertions can quickly blur into unverified speculation. Plato himself was careful to attribute his story to Solon and the Egyptian priests, recognizing the importance of lineage for credibility. Our role is to present the evidence and the differing views, allowing you, the viewer, to weigh the facts, the arguments, and the sources as you form your own conclusions about Atlantis. So, what can we definitively conclude about Atlantis? Based on current geological, archaeological, and oceanographic data, there is no empirical evidence to support the existence of a continent-sized island empire that sank in the Atlantic Ocean 9,600 years ago as described by Plato. The discrepancies in location, scale, and chronology with any plausible real-world event are too significant for mainstream acceptance. However, the Thera hypothesis offers a compelling case for a devastating ancient cataclysm that might have inspired parts of Plato's narrative, perhaps heavily embellished. Ultimately, the answer to whether Atlantis is myth or hidden reality rests on how one interprets Plato's account. Do you view it as a meticulously crafted philosophical allegory, leveraging vivid imagery to convey profound moral lessons? Or do you see it as a distorted memory of a real-world catastrophe, perhaps a memory passed down through generations and embellished over time? The scientific consensus leans heavily towards allegory, but the allure of discovery ensures the search continues. The true power of Atlantis may lie not in its historical truth, but in its profound ability to inspire wonder and critical thought.